All right, we are live through YouTube.
Fantastic. 2-minute countdown. I love the comment from Laura. You all look so serious. It's unlike us.
All right, I think I'll get ready to kick us off.
Sounds good. All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is our 80th episode of the Condor Chat. I can't believe it's the 80th. We started this back in 2020 during the pandemic and have obviously continued it ever since. Threw in a few extra here and there to do Condor releases, but otherwise it's been monthly, nonstop. And I know many of you have been joining us ever since. And I thank you for that. And thank you for sharing to friends and family to get others to come join us today too. And I love to see people from all over the country. I noticed already some folks from all over the state of California and elsewhere, Rockville, Maryland, and Chris, welcome. So thank you. It's really great to see uh, uh, so many people joining us every month. And of course, this is such a great place to come and listen to the condor biologists that are working closely with the birds. We're all working so hard to recover the species so that the California condor can once again be completely free and independent on their own once again. And it's just so encouraging to see the birds doing what they should be doing reproductively incredibly well. We're going to hear much more about that here in a bit. And the critical work that we're doing, not only releases of condors to the wild, but the monitoring of their movements, finding dead birds and determining their cause of death. And of course, perhaps most importantly, the critical work that we're doing with non-lead outreach to work with hunters and ranchers to use non-lead ammunition. Um, and if you're new to the organization and that sounds weird to you, trust me, it'll all make sense if you stick around and hear more about that issue. But lead poisoning is the number one problem that we're facing, the number one mortality threat that the California condor faces in the wild. And we're actively working hard to reduce that threat and have some great updates to share about the population, about nesting, and a bunch of things. So we're just super excited to be here. This is now our 28th year in condor recovery, which is hard to imagine. We did our first release in 1997. And today, Joe Burnett is not here with us, as you can probably see plainly. He's down in Cambria doing a screening of our film Condor Canyon. But we have Darren Gross, Danae, I can't talk today. Darren Gross, Danae Mouton, and Mike Stake. So anyway, thank you all for being here. Welcome to the panel, and we'll turn it over to you all.
All right, thank you, Kelly. Let me get our presentation started here. All right. Yeah, welcome everyone to the Condor Chat, our November edition of the Condor Chat. As Kelly said, it's our 80th episode. Stoked to still be doing these and yeah, being here from the first one as a way to keep engaged with folks during COVID was I don't know, didn't imagine it turning into what it is now, but yeah, this is really cool and really special. So glad to be here for another one. All right, so today's agenda, we'll get into a population update. We'll talk about the rookies at San Simeon, how they're doing since their release a few weeks ago. I guess almost a month ago now. Uh, we'll talk about how nesting has been going this year, talk about the chicks and give some fledging updates. We'll give a preview on nesting this upcoming year, 2026 nesting season. I'll turn it over to Kelly for some updates on the Save the Condor campaign, and then we will end with questions. Give me just a minute. I'm gonna reset here. All right. Um, But yeah, so we have yeah, just going through our crew real quick. So yeah, Joe Burnett, who Kelly said isn't here today, but he's usually the one leading these, so I'll hope to do as good a job as he usually does. Mike Stake, who's on, is our non-lead outreach coordinator. The condor biologist, there's myself, Darren Gross, Kara Fadden, who isn't on today's chat, and then Danae Mouton, who's joining me. Our interns, Liz and Valerie. They're down with Joe in Cambria for the Condor Canyon showing and participating in that event. We have our GIS specialist, Evan McReith, and then a CSUMB student researcher, Caitlin Tunick, who's been helping us out in the field a lot these past few months and is continuing to do so. Our database designer and volunteer, Tim Huntington, and then we have our veterinary advisor, Dr. Wells, who helps us at handlings and giving condors vaccines and giving them physicals and such. But yeah, before we get into all the condor updates, Tim Huntington is also an amazing photographer, and he gives us lots of really cool condor photos to share. Um, for these chats, but he also has tons of really good landscape photos. And this past month in particular, he shared some just stunning work. So yeah, I just wanted to share a couple of his photos of the Big Sur coast from the past month. You can see this is looking down the coast on a kind of a moody Big Sur days, or some of my favorite days in Big Sur when you have some high cloud action. I can still see pretty far down the coast. It's very, very beautiful. I'll love it when the condors are in these photos too, but even just seeing the landscape like this is really special. This is the Point Sur Lighthouse, just as you're heading into Big Sur from the north. And Tim just got this awesome moment where the fog was creeping over. And yeah, I just wanted to share it with you guys because this is so cool. No clouds in the sky up above, but the fog's just rolling right in. And then lastly, Tim got this great shot of in the redwoods with the sun rays just starting to peek through with some little bit of fog, but yeah, just the sun rays going right through here, and that's just beautiful. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy these as much as we do, because yeah, it's really cool to be able to share this, and yeah, we're lucky to have Tim who shares it with us. But all right, popping into the population update. So we are at 114 total condors in the Central California flock. Um, we still have two pre-fledged chicks Um, and sorry, guys, having a little bit of technical difficulties here. Give me just a minute.
Yeah, and while you're doing that, someone mentioned in the chat 114 is a record, and that is absolutely correct. It is. We reached 100 once before, and then the Dolan fire knocked the population back, and then we crept back up to 100 just, I guess, last year, and now seeing it at 114 is just awesome. So, yeah, thanks for pointing that out. Going in the right direction.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're stoked. I mean, and we're looking forward to about to say we still have two chicks that we haven't confirmed fledges for yet. This is 1372 and 1381. We'll talk about them a little more. But we have the potential here to get up to 116 in the very near future. And yeah, we're stoked to just have this growth and be where we are right now with the Central California population. There are still six pre-release condors that the Pinnacles crew is going to be releasing soon. Their release date is to be determined, but yeah, very soon they'll be releasing them. And then yeah, we have our seven rookies or releases that we just released a month ago from San Simeon, and they're all doing great. Can't wait to share with you all more on how those guys are doing. No new mortalities since our last update, but we did get some necropsy results for a few birds. So for 1019 Jane, we did confirm that from the necropsy that she died of lead poisoning. Um, Pinnacles Condor 1129, still waiting on the necropsy for that bird, but then 631 Zephyr, uh, they weren't able to determine a cause of death for him. There was some evidence that lead poisoning could be related, but nothing enough to conclude that was his cause of death. But we now have four of the six mortalities we've had in 2025 confirmed were due to lead poisoning. That's 67%, two-thirds of the mortalities this year due to lead poisoning, which again just highlights and emphasizes how big of an issue that is for these birds and what we're really trying to overcome to get these birds self-sustaining and bring them back. There are still four missing birds in the wild. 729 Ninja and 236 Tiny, they went missing at the end of last year. I think 729, well, it will be a year uh, that he's been missing in a few days on November 23rd. And at that point, we officially call a bird deceased once it's been a year that they've been missing. So we will be calling 729 deceased shortly, and same thing with 236 Tiny. She also because she went missing in early December last year. We will be calling her deceased once we reach that date when we had the last visual of her.
Hey,
1011 Diane went missing in this past May, um, and then 1079 uh, who's a Pinnacles bird. He went missing in January of this year, so he's another one who we will very likely be calling deceased come January.
Hey, Darren, I want to jump in just real quick. We're not seeing the slides anymore. Are you still having technical difficulties, or
Oh, sorry.
can you
Let
share that?
me, yeah, let me
Sorry to cut in, but
do that. No, no, no. Thank you for the heads up there. All right. Let me see. All right. Is that better? Do you guys see it
yeah.
now? All right, perfect. Sorry, guys. I went running through right all these numbers without you being able to see, but um, yeah, as I'm concluding this slide here, I'll leave it up for a little bit longer. But a bird that we had missing, we were at five missing birds, but Condor 800, Pinnacles bird, um, we did reach the year mark for him since when he was last seen in November 2024. So we have officially called him deceased for 2024. So his death will be added to that year. Um, but Yeah, it's kind of where we are right now with the population. Again, we're still waiting on these two chicks to, or confirm these two chicks to fledge. So we're at 100, which we'll get to 116 at that point. But yeah, we'll keep you guys posted as that happens. Okay, so getting into our rookie update. Yeah, we released the seven rookies from San Simeon on October 25th. They were six females and one male, so 1265, 1289, 1290, 1300, 1302, 1307, and 1312. They're all released and doing really well. We'll share more about each of them in a minute. And then, yeah, Pinnacle still has their six pre-release rookies that they're going to release here very soon. So that'll be 1257, 1261, 1262, 1276, 1294, and 1296. And yeah, they have two females in their pre-release cohort and four males. So far, seven of the 13 pre-release birds that we got for Central California have been released, the seven that we've released, and then we'll get to 13 once Pinnacles releases those six rookies that they have.
Do you anticipate that being done before the end of the year? Would that increase this year's numbers, or are we looking at maybe next year?
I believe the goal is before the end of this year. So, um, yeah, in addition to the two pre-fledged chicks I had just mentioned, those six being released this year would get us to that's 122 before the end of the year, which would be awesome. But yeah, I think the goal is to get them released before the end of the year, just before we're at the start of rainy season now. But while the days are still kind of shorter, is a good time to release birds. So I know Pinnacles wants to get them out soon. Thank you, Mike. Um, but yeah, so getting into to talking about the releases a little more. So we have 1265 Alala, 1289 Nene, 1290 Huckleberry, 1300 Moly, 1302 Bernie, 1307 Palila, and 1312 Kaloa. And so the theme that Valerie and Liz kind of went with for naming these birds, for most of these birds, was naming them after endangered Hawaiian bird species. So the Alala is the Hawaiian crow, the Nene is the Hawaiian goose, the Moli is the Hawaiian name for the Laysan albatross. The Palila is named for a honey creeper species in Hawaii that's endangered, and then the Kaloa is the Hawaiian name for the Hawaiian duck. The other two, 1290 Huckleberry, kind of goes back to a theme that we have used before in naming birds after California native plants. So yeah, we named 1290 the lone male in this cohort after the Huckleberry. And then 1302 Bernie was actually named by the zookeeper at LA Zoo who helped that bird hatch. It was this zookeeper's first time uh, assisting with the hatch of a captive bred condor, and she named them Bernie, and we thought that was really special and wanted to continue that name for that bird. And yeah, the release event, if you missed it, is on our website. You can go to this link uh, to watch the release. It's also on our YouTube channel, but yeah, we have the full release up there if you want to tune back in and catch that if you want to see it and see how it all went. All right, so getting into the rookie update, kind of getting into the more specifics of how they've been doing. Really, they've been doing exactly what we've hoped they would do and made it easy on us. And they've really just stayed around our San Simeon site. And they've been exploring the trees there, finding good perches, making short flights. But yeah, most of their time is spent either up in the trees, just hanging out with each other, meeting other condors, or when we have food out, they're down there feeding with everyone else and the turkey vultures down there, and yeah, just feasting and filling up. So yeah, they are acclimating to life in the wild. Becoming very wild themselves, which we love to see, but kind of in small steps and gradual steps, which helps us keep up with them. So we're still able to get eyes on them pretty much every day that we get up there, and that's been excellent to be able to monitor them so closely as they're learning to be these wild birds. So yeah, 1302 Bernie again. All these photos that I'm about to show are from Liz and Valerie. They got some great photos of the rookies this past month. But yeah, 1302 Bernie is she's laying down on this branch. We like to call it pancaking, just for fun because they really flatten out when they do this. It's fun to see how much they can just like chill out and relax in these trees. 1290 Huckleberry, I think, has probably been the most active in terms of flying around. He's left the site a few times, hasn't gone very far yet, but every time he's left, he's returned. Usually right around when there's fresh food out. He knows when to come back. But yeah, they've both been seen a lot. 1265 Alala and 1289 Nene have like just like the rest of these birds have really been hanging close to the site and yeah, just finding out trying kind of learning what's a good perch and like learning what they can perch on. You can see Nene here is right at the tip of a tree that burnt and snapped, but is still looking pretty stable up there, even though it is a little narrow. But yeah, 1265 here is also laying down like Bernie was in this photo. But yeah, they're doing really well. 1300 Moly up in the trees here, and 936 is not one of the releases, but 936 Madeline is the dominant female of the San Simeon site, and so she has been kind of teaching these releases what the hierarchy is. And yeah, they've definitely been adjusting. They've learned a lot, and I think they know by now how they should interact with Madeline and some of these other adult birds that come down. Um, but yeah, they're doing really well. No major skirmishes or anything like that. The hierarchy is definitely a learning process for these birds, but they're adjusting really well. Yeah, and another photo of Alala here, right outside the pen. It's from the past few weeks, stretching out her wings. You see the birds do a lot. They're really on it and maintaining their feathers, trying to stay dry, which 1290 Huckleberry here on the left is not able to do such a good job. It looks like Liz and Valerie got this photo, maybe from the cam during a rainstorm. But yeah, the birds, when there's food out, even if it's raining, they're down there feeding and they get soaked and they can look kind of funny and miserable, but they push through it. And as soon as they can get dry, they take advantage of that time and that sun that's out. But yeah, really stoked to see all these rookies doing so well. All right, I think Danae, I'll hand it over to you to talk about nesting and yeah, happy to chime back in whenever.
Sounds good. Yeah, so we are doing pretty good on our nests for this year. This is all 2025 nests. On the Ventana side of things, we had three chicks, one of which we've confirmed fledged. That's 1371, who's the offspring of 219 Puff and 538 Miracle. That chick we have some exciting news about in a little bit, so I'll save that. And then 168 and 970, who passed away earlier this year. Their chick 1381 is still alive and is doing well as far as we know, but it is still inside the nest cavity, even though it was expected to fledge over a month ago now. That chick is deep, deep inside a redwood, and so we expect it'll take a little while longer before that chick will fledge. And then 574 and 1006 also have a chick, 1372, which was expected to fledge about a month ago. And we do think that chick is likely fledged or is very close to fledging, but we can only monitor that nest with GPS. And so unfortunately, we cannot get eyes on it. We can't actually see the chick. And so we're waiting a little bit longer before we officially call that nest fledged, but things are looking good there. We're just giving it some time. And then Pinnacles had two successful nests this year, and both have successfully fledged now. I think last chat only one of them had fledged, but now they've confirmed both chicks have fledged, which is awesome. And one of those chicks, 1358, who's the offspring of 569 and 589, is already tagged. Pinnacles did a nest entry on that nest and put a radio tag on that chick when it was about 120 days old. And so that chick, now that it's fledged, is already able to be tracked, which is really helpful, given that it will soon have four untagged friends hanging out. That will be our job to try to trap and put tags on at some point next year. But 1373 is the other chick from Pinnacles that fledged this year. It was one of our earliest fledge, and that chick continues to do well. The Pinnacles crew is able to monitor that chick visually, and that chick has been looking great and still getting lots of free meals from mom and dad, which is great. So we're still waiting on those last two chicks to confirm fledge, but we're looking on track for a total of 5 fledglings this year, which would be awesome. And then this was pretty exciting. Some of our Explore viewers caught this, but we believe 1371, who just fledged not too long ago, about a month ago, and is now 7 months old, actually made it to the release site already, which is got to be a record for the earliest chick to make it to a release site. Sometimes by Christmas we get fledglings showing up, but before Thanksgiving is pretty unheard of. So we were all pretty stoked to see this untagged juvenile hanging out. And I love this GIF from Newbie16 from explore.org of the chick chasing away a raven and slowly asserting their place in the dominance hierarchy, just not with other condors yet. But really cool to see this chick at the release site. And we can't say 100% sure this is 1371, but we do strongly suspect that it is, and we're hoping to get confirmation soon. And that just happens when we see a parent feed the chick. So we've seen 219 around this chick, but we haven't actually seen a feeding yet. So yeah, November 4th was that chick's arrival to the release site. And unless anyone else can prove me wrong, I'm calling that a record for Ventana chicks to make it to the release site.
Yeah, and we got a video here from the Joe God of again, who we believe is an untagged bird who we believe is 1371. So let me just stop sharing for a minute. All right.
I love seeing all these untagged birds, you know.
Yeah, it's awesome. We had, 9 chicks that fledged last year, so that was a lot of untagged birds to keep track of, and we're finally just catching up on tagging all of those chicks from last year. So now we're gonna have 5 new ones or 4 new ones since Pinnacle's already tagged one of theirs.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's see what.
That's pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
You can see that chick is already flying really well. It's only been fledged about a month, but it's already soaring super well. You only saw a few little flaps here and there that maybe an adult bird might not do, but otherwise that chick looks great. And I love that video too. You can see how much they use their tail when they fly, and adults will do this too, but they really use it like a rudder to control their flight. That was a really windy day up there too, so that chick was doing good with navigating the wind. Cool. And then, yeah, 1381, as I mentioned, is still in that giant jumble of redwood branches there that we just can't. I wish we had X-ray vision and we could see through that. But we do know that the chick is in there. We have had visual confirmation of the chick inside the nest. It's just very difficult to see. And 168, that chick's dad is still hanging out, still very present at the nest, bringing food back constantly to the nest, and also just being super vigilant. So, he's still being a wonderful dad and still 7 months out from when that chick was hatched. And he actually incubated by himself for almost a whole month before that. So almost 8 months as a single dad is pretty incredible. He's doing a great job. And we're all just so inspired by him and excited for that chick to finally work up the strength and the courage to make it out of that cavity. But now that it's raining, I have to say it's probably pretty nice to be tucked away inside that cavity. And I imagine all those branches keep out a lot of the rainwater. So it's probably pretty cozy in there. So I don't necessarily blame the chick for wanting to hang out a little bit longer. But yeah, our last visual of that chick was on the 6th of November, so earlier this month. But again, we still think that chick is doing great. We're just waiting on a fledge date. Hopefully, maybe by next month, but we'll see. It could take quite some time because that cavity is very, very deep. And then, yeah, these were some cool photos from Tim Huntington, who was out watching the nest and got to see some interesting interactions here between 168 and 190. I think 190 is kind of expanding her territory potentially. She's, unfortunately was not successful with her nest last year. And so, or sorry, this year. And so I think she's kind of looking around for potential new nesting sites and new territories. And so 168 here was just kind of kindly reminding her that this is his territory and she's not allowed here. And he kind of escorted her out of the territory, but they had a really interesting interaction here. And I think it is kind of interesting, worth noting that 168, because 970 died earlier this year, 168 is unpaired, and he's a pretty desirable male to be with because of his status in the population. He's pretty high up in the hierarchy, and has tons of nesting experience. And I think 190 knows this, so I think this could have been her subtle way of telling him too, hey, next season I'm available, maybe potentially. So we'll see. We still think she's still with 650 right now, and 650, is still doing his best. But unfortunately, he just doesn't have the track record of raising lots of chicks. So it'll be tough for him next year, but we'll see. I'm still rooting for him and hoping that she'll stay with 650. But time will tell. As we know, every breeding season, there's always some drama that goes down. So 190 will definitely be perusing her choices, I think, and potentially picking a new nest territory. Even if she stays with 650, she might be kind of trying to expand her range a little bit. Yeah, and then jumping into 2026 nesting season, to kind of compare with this year as we look forward to next year, in 2025, which is this year. We're still finishing up this nesting season because condor nesting season is kind of all year round. We had 10 total nesting pairs and or trios are included in that. And each pair slash trio did one nest attempt. So we had 10 nesting attempts. But we actually had 11 eggs because we had one trio with two females, and both females laid eggs in that nest. And out of those 11 eggs, we ended up with 6 chicks. So about half of those eggs hatched, and about 5 out of 6 of those chicks are still alive, and 3 of those have fledged. So we're getting pretty close to the end of 2025 nesting season. And so we hope to end up with 5 fledglings, which is pretty good. That's about 50% success, which is pretty high, all things considered. And so, all things considered, even though 2024 seems like it was a much better nesting season, and it was because we ended up with 9 fledglings, 2025 is still a really good nesting season in terms of the history of the recovery program. 5 was our maximum number of fledglings before we had 9 last year. So still a really good year this year. Definitely still a really positive sign for a positive growth rate for the flock. And then in 2026, we're looking ahead to breeding season already. We've already seen some displays happening. And so we have 11 established pairs that we think will nest or are likely to nest in 2026. Obviously, that doesn't mean they're going to, but it just means they're due to nest and are very likely to. And then we also have a lot of potential breeding pairs that might be forming as we have some younger females who are kind of reaching that breeding age, and are kind of showing signs that they might be nesting or might be looking to nest next year. And so if you add in all of those as well, we have potentially up to 19 potential breeding pairs. And again, that's pairs and includes some trios as well, where there's a few trios in there at Pinnacles. But yeah, pretty exciting to see that number so high. Obviously, I don't think we're going to get 19 nests. I think that's kind of the maximum that we could possibly get. I think we'll probably get maybe somewhere around 14-ish, 13, 14, hopefully, which is still really, really good. So that would be really exciting. But even if we only get 10 or 11, that's still on par with what we had this year. So it's still really good in terms of nesting. So really cool just to see all the potential that's out there for next breeding season.
Hey, Danae, is a Nico one of these potentials for next year, or is that further down the line?
She sure is. Yeah, Darren, if you want to jump to the slide with Aniko on it. So these are potential breeding pairs for this coming year, and you'll see Aniko is on there under the VWS side of things, we do think she might nest on the coast. She's been spending a lot of time kind of more out on the coast versus farther inland. So we think if she's going to nest, it will probably be somewhere in the coastal range, which is obviously where she hatched. You know, she hatched out on the coast, so that would be really cool that she's kind of returning to this area as she gets older. But we don't know really where she's looking to nest, and we don't know with who she's looking to nest. Last year, we thought maybe she was kind of hanging out with 718, who I believe his nickname is Apollo, and they kind of seemed like they were trying to form a pair, but nothing ever came of it. And so she could potentially stick around with him this year, or she has plenty of other options to choose from. So we're keeping a really close eye on her. And then we actually put a GPS on her as well as 1089, Little Great One, who's also on that list. They both have GPS now. So we're really going to be using that GPS data to help us figure out where they're nesting and who they're nesting with, and if they nest at all, which they might not, but they're both, or 1031 will be 6 years old next year. And so typically the earliest they can mate is 5 years old. So technically she could have bred last year or this year, sorry, 2025 if she wanted to. But next year she'll be 6. And so we think there's probably going to be a little bit more pressure on her to breed next year in 2026. And then 1089 and 1104 are both going to be technically, you know, the earliest they could breed next year at 5 years old. And so hopefully, you know, there's a chance that they could both breed, but sometimes females that just turn 5 years old, they kind of wait a year or two before they get their first nest attempt. So we'll see. They're both kind of wild cards, but we're keeping our eye on them. And 1089 especially is looking, they're both actually looking very adult-like in their coloration and everything, and definitely attracting some attention from some eligible males. So we'll see. And then Pinnacles has a few potential new breeding pairs as well. And some of these were pairs that kind of started to form last year, similar to Aniko kind of pairing up with 718 last year. So 888 and 1042 were seen together. And 1042 was seen hanging out in 888's territory. So they could be potentially a new pair, as well as 943 and 1036. They kind of were spending a lot of time together last year, and hopefully will kind of pick a nesting territory and settle down this year. And then 747 is due to nest next year. And unfortunately, as we announced earlier in the chat, 800, her mate has been missing for over a year in the wild. So he was declared officially deceased. So she's kind of been looking around for a new mate and has been hanging out with 1034, who is unfortunately her son. So we're really hoping that she picks someone else instead of 1034. But we'll see. She definitely has lots of options as well. So we'll see who she decides to pair with, but she's pretty likely to breed next year with whoever she chooses. And then 1078 and 1081 are both Pinnacles females that are similar to 1089 and 1104. They're both just going to be reaching breeding age next year. So they could breed next year, but they might not. So they're on our potential list, but we'll keep a close eye on them, or the Pinnacles crew will be. And then, yeah, in terms of established pairs, a lot of these pairs were successful in 2024, which is why they didn't breed this year. And so a lot of you will remember these pairs and the chicks that they produced from 2024, and they're all now ready to nest again, hopefully. So top of the list is 470 Fuego and 962 Soto. They raised 1318 in 2024. And they're now hopefully going to be ready to breed again this coming year. And then 646 and 892, unfortunately, had a failed nest attempt this year, but we're hoping that they'll try again next year. And they're showing all indications that they're going to, including going into their nest that 646 has been using for years. And we actually have a camera inside that nest now, which we'll show a little video of later, but they have been seen inside their nest since we've had the camera put up. So that's really exciting, encouraging sign that they're probably going to try to nest next year. 550 and 652 Ferdinand, they're a solid pair that have produced several chicks now. They produced 1315 in 2024, and so they're due to nest again next year. Same with 190, who we were talking about earlier, that she, you know, is due to nest next year because she had a failed nest attempt with 650 this year. So we suspect that she's going to keep trying, whether it's with 650 or not, we'll see. But I think regardless of who she ends up with, she's going to try to nest again because she's a super dominant female who's raised many chicks before. And then 209 and 881 raised 1317 in 2024. So they're ready to go again in 2026. And 881 has a GPS. That's a nest that's super remote, so we can only monitor it via GPS. So if they use the same nest site as we suspect they will, 881 has been hanging out in that area a lot recently. So it seems pretty likely they're going to keep nesting there since they were successful. And then last on the list is 758 and 936, who we're counting as an established pair because they do seem to be a pair in terms of behavior, except for the fact that they have not actually nested yet. 936 has been breeding age for a couple years now, but she has not laid an egg. So we're hoping next year will finally be the year. And she definitely, has a good mate in 758. He's a very dominant male, and so hopefully he'll do a good job of picking a good nest site for them. And ultimately, we think females have a lot of say in where they decide to nest. So hopefully, 936 will be amenable to that, and will hopefully figure out, a good spot where she can lay an egg. And they'll at least make an attempt next year, which would I think be really exciting, especially for a lot of our viewers that watch the San Simeon cam. They're kind of the dominant pair down at the San Simeon site, and spend a lot of time there. So that would be really cool to have a nesting pair that's actively nesting and still that visits that site. And then on the Pinnacle side of things, they have kind of 5 pairs that are pretty established, including you can see those 2 pairs with the asterisks. Those are pairs that have kind of started nesting every single year. And so they did both of those pairs nested this year, as well as the previous year. So 589 and 569. If they decide to nest next year, that will be 6 years in a row for them, which is crazy. They've been successful 5 years in a row already as of this year. Their chick is the one that the Pinnacles crew just called fledged recently. So that means officially they've been successful 5 years in a row. And who knows? At this rate, I think they seem to be going every single year. So we're putting them on there as potential and likely to nest next year. And same thing with 868 and 931. They were successful their very first time. They were successful this year. And so we're hoping they'll be successful next year as well if they decide to nest next year. And then we've got a couple of trios on this list. 340, who's probably the most dominant Pinnacles male, is paired with 2 females, 913 and 889, who raised a chick successfully in 2024 and were not successful, unfortunately, with their nest attempt this year, but we think they're going to try again next year. And then 692, 726, and 966 have been a trio for a couple years now. This year, both females laid eggs in the nest, and one of those eggs was fertile. It just unfortunately did not hatch. So we're hoping that next year, at least one or potentially both of those eggs will be fertile, and at least one will hopefully hatch next year. And then 317 and 330, we believe nested this year, but were not successful. They are brother and sister, as many of you are aware. So we're gonna see 317 has been showing up a lot out on the coast, as a lot of our Explore viewers have noted. She's been popping up on the Condor cam quite a bit. And that could be a sign that she's had enough of 330 and wants to try again with a different mate because things have not been working out for her in 330 so far. So we'll see. We kind of are all kind of keeping our fingers crossed for that she pairs with someone other than her brother. And back in the day, she actually used to nest out on the coast. She used to be a coastal bird. So could just be her kind of returning to her historic nesting area and kind of remembering how good it was out on the coast. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with her, but she's one to keep an eye on next year as well.
Yeah, so I can jump in here and talk a little bit about the new nest cam that we're going to have. So yeah, I think we talked about this last month, but Joe and Gavin Emmons, who works over at Pinnacles National Park, they installed a live streaming camera in the nest tree that 646 and 892 have used before. Yeah, 646 Kodama and 892 Vincent. And so that is streaming now. And it has sound, which is really cool. Just to kind of go through, well, first, of course, more amazing Tim photos that he just got very recently of Kodama and Vincent here along the coast. I think they were chowing down on some yummy carcasses that had washed up on shore. And yeah, Tim got these great photos of them flying right by. But yeah, they've also been going back to their nest or this nest tree where Joe and Gavin installed the camera, and so we've been able to get these snapshots here and some video clips that I will get ready to share with you all. So let me get this going.
Yeah, while you're queuing that up there, and I can just chat for a little bit. But yeah, the that pair has been, seen a lot together. We think they're still going strong as a pair, and 646 has raised a lot of chicks before, successfully with her long-term mate 204. So we're really hoping that they will nest next year. And we'll see. We have this camera set up now, which is awesome. We haven't had a nest camera in like this in a new nest this early, so it's really cool to see. These early nest visits, like the one Darren's about to show, and just see kind of them getting ready to hopefully lay an egg at that nest and what that process looks like. So yeah, we're all really excited to hopefully see more activity in the nest. And you guys, if you are on explore.org, you can check out that nest cam 24/7. It's actually not reliant on solar power, so it should continue streaming, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah,
All
I
right,
can
let's
keep going
pull.
if you
Yeah,
need
no,
more time.
I think we're ready. But yeah, let me pull this up. Yes, that was from early on this month. And then just a few days ago, had another one here. So let me just stop sharing for a minute and get this up here. Oops. All right, here we go. This might be, yeah, that might be my favorite part is Vincent's landing in this.
He makes a grand entrance, doesn't he?
Yeah, a little too grand, I think.
Yeah, hopefully he doesn't do that when there's an egg in there.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Let me get the presentation back up here.
That is really cool to have audio on that camera too and be able to hear kind of all the little noises. We talk about condors don't really vocalize, but they don't have a voice box like other birds do, but they do vocalize, and their vocalizations are those little huffs and grunts you can hear, um, which, doesn't sound like much, but when you're really close up like that, you can actually hear all those little noises that they make, and it's pretty cool.
Hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
they'll even communicate between, parent and the chick inside the egg before the hatch. I mean, yeah. So it's awesome that that sound is included in this cam. So cool. Huge thanks to explore.org.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I'm just gonna third that. I don't really have much more to add, but yeah, just being able to hear the sounds here. I mean, even the background noise is just so cool. Yeah, glad we could get that added and share that with everyone. All right, so I think Kelly, I'll hand it off to you.
Yeah, sounds good. I see a bunch of questions in the chat, so we definitely want to get to that. So I'll just be real quick here. We're getting a lot of questions about what our needs are and what our overall program size is. And many of you will probably be surprised that the total Condor program budget for Central California here at Ventana Wildlife Society is just $1.1 million. And 90% of that we now hope to come from private sources. Um, and if you go to the next slide, I talked earlier in the year with a goal of 410,000 by October 1. I wanted to share what the annual goal is, which is 635,000 from individuals. And if we combine that with grants and individual support, we really need that 990,000, that 90% from private support to continue the operation. Next slide, you see there we're 72% of the way there, so we still have a chance of succeeding this year. And I just want to also take a moment to give big thanks to the Doris Day and Terry Melcher Foundation, the Oakland Zoo, the Macaw Foundation, Marisla Foundation, Canool Foundation, Ruth Smart Foundation, Ohlone Audubon Society, and more than 1,000 individual donors. Many of you are here today. So thank you so much. We couldn't do the work that we're doing without you. And last slide, the most important thing really here is to know what the money goes toward. And our Condor crew works so hard, tirelessly, all year round, not only conducting releases of captive bred birds to the wild, but treating those when they need treatment. Avian diseases such as highly pathogenic avian influenza is now on the scene, and we're working really hard to vaccinate the entire flock. We have nests to monitor and keep track of. And ultimately, the outreach on non-lead ammunition is so, so important. We're using the GPS data that the condors provide when they're flying around in the landscape to inform us where to direct our outreach efforts. And that has been incredibly helpful. I think if we weren't steering non-lead ammunition into the hands of hunters and ranchers where condors are foraging, the death rate would be far, far higher. And we're just really, really pleased to see how people are embracing non-lead ammunition. But we recognize that it's difficult to find in some calibers. So that's where we come in as a licensed ammunition vendor. We specialize in providing non-lead ammunition to key constituents in Central California. So all of that together, we consider vital recovery actions, and that's what the funding goes toward, and that's why it's so important. We've been at this now for almost 30 years, and we've seen that the birds are doing what they need to do. We just need to get out of their way and let them be self-sustaining again. And we know how to do that. We have the tools. We have everything we've really, everything we've done so far to bring us to this point is pointing us in the direction of resolving the lead ammunition problem to the point where they can once again be self-sustaining. And anyway, we're on the right track. Enough of that. I know we have a ton of questions. But thank you for letting me spend a few minutes to talk about the funding side of things. But let me turn it over to Mike because I know we have time here for many questions in the chat. So thanks again.
Yes, thank you, Kelly. We'll get to a few. Darren, you talked about condors that are missing.
Mm-hmm.
And Carol asks, is it possible that the missing condors just simply flew away to some remote area and that they are still alive? Now, we know from Evan's maps that they can fly more than 200 miles in a day. And I know your crew seems to know everything about this population, but does anything get by you guys? Is it possible that some of these missing birds are out there and there's hope for their survival?
Um, I wish I could uh, share something more positive about this, but it is very unlikely at this point for each of these missing birds. Just because it has been so long since we've had like visuals of them to confirm that they're okay. Um, like some birds we know um their radio transmitters can give off a different type of signal when they've been still for a long time. We call it a mortality signal because usually that we start getting a signal like that when a bird has died. There are some of these missing birds we are getting that we've been getting that mortality signal for, but they're just in an area that's not safe for us to access. So for some of them, they are missing, and that we can't confirm what happened to them, but we have an idea of where they are. For others, the thing with like that it's like any possibility of them having flown somewhere far away, and not having returned is the sort of how I think about that is like condors are so social and gregarious. They really want to be around other condors. It's highly unlikely that they would have flown somewhere and where there aren't any other condors and spent this much time away from this flock or another flock where they would have been detected for this long. So yeah, unfortunately, I wish I could offer more hope there, but it is not looking good for these missing birds.
And part of the protocol has involved actually going up in the air like a condor, getting a flight and actually using the radio telemetry gear with more of a direct access to all points on the ground and possibly getting birds there. And some of those flights have been successful. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So that is definitely that is a big part of our protocol, especially when we're not able to get a detection for a bird, either a visual or a signal from our tracking on the ground. We work with Lighthawk closely in those cases to organize flights to go up to take check for signals from the air, which is a really good way to get birds if they're kind of really like somewhere that's really inaccessible by foot, or if they're just really far down in like a canyon. And yeah, we have had success with those flights before in locating missing birds. They've been a huge help. And yeah, we've relied on them a lot in the past, and we will continue to do so.
So we have a growing number of established pairs and condors, and I'm going to turn to Danae as our expert in condor trios. And I say expert because she has done some research and actually presented a paper at a conference about condor trios. And the question comes in, the provisioning of young by these three parents, is it fairly equal? Is it just one female feeding her chick, but maybe the other female not participating in that? How do they share those duties? Do they all sort of get involved?
Yeah, that's a great question. We don't have, any like no one's ever sat down and watched a nest and like recorded number of minutes feeding and, collected empirical data on that, but we do have tons of observational evidence from just biologists being out in the field watching. So anecdotally, I can say that, yeah, all three individuals are providing equal care for that chick. So that all three parents are coming to feed that chick regardless of, whose it ends up being, like 1310 from a nest last year with two females and a male that was 888 and 889 and 913. And that chick ended up being 913's chick. She ended up being the biological mother. But 889 was just as dedicated to providing food. She was the other female in the trio, and her egg unfortunately did not hatch, but she was just as good a mom to 1310 as 913 was. And all three parents were incubating that egg even before it hatched. And so, yes, that is kind of the trend we see with these trios is that there's just one extra parent in the mix, but they're all three providing really excellent care for that offspring.
Sally wants to know more about the non-lead outreach, asking what is the major obstacle in getting ranchers to use non-lead bullets? Could it be the price? Could it be lack of awareness, or just their ease of using lead? They're just used to it. I would say that it's a combination of things. Certainly, non-lead ammunition is more expensive than lead, and if you're shooting a lot of ground squirrels, that price difference could add up to something noticeable for the rancher. I think availability is one of the biggest. If you are shooting ground squirrels on a ranch with a 22 long rifle, you will not find non-lead 22 in local stores right now. They just aren't making it. And so we still have some, and we're trying to get it to those ranchers preferentially. But that is a big problem. We need to work with manufacturers to increase production of non-lead 22, design good products, and have better choices and options available for those ranchers. Right now, that's a big obstacle. And as far as our outreach goes, the response has been quite well. One of the difficulties is simply getting a rancher on the phone. And but once we're able to make contact with those ranchers, really the quality of the non-lead and the availability that we have really sells itself. And so we get very good participation. We've started what we're calling the Safe Forage Network, really concentrating on those private lands where the condor data shows likely feeding events. And so we're actually measuring who we're contacting, how many of those ranches are using non-lead, which spots we need to do more outreach. And our strategic plan is to really increase that percentage of properties reached. And so that's an ongoing process that we are working on. So it's not just getting a large number of boxes of ammunition out there. Certainly we want to do that, but it's more about where we put those boxes of ammunition, whose hands we get it into, that really makes a difference. So thank you, Sally, for that question. Steve asks, what is the percent of wild food in the condor diet versus human supplied food? Now, your crew goes out there in the dead of night. That night's getting earlier now in the wintertime, and you provide a carcass to the condors to feed on as supplemental food source. But do we have any idea what that percentage is of condors finding food on their own in the wild versus the what they feed on supplementally provided by you?
Yeah, I don't have a particular percentage I can give, but I can say that we have condors finding food on they're finding wild food all the time. There are some birds that seem to like that is the majority of their diet. One of the birds we had talked about in the established pairs, Condor 330, is hardly ever seen at any of our proffered feeding sites between pinnacles or the coast. So, there are birds like him that we know are getting most of their food from wild food sources, and a lot of birds get both. Like we'll see them at the proffered feeding sites, feeding on the carcasses that we're providing, and then a few days later, where there's a wild carcass, they'll be out there feeding on that too. So yeah, for most birds, it's a good mix of both the supplemental food we're providing and food that they're finding on their own in the wild. And for others, it definitely seems like wild food is the majority of their diet.
Yeah, it seems quite clear that these birds are very good at finding food. They're very good scavengers.
And if I could just add really quickly too, it's a difficult question to answer because we're intentionally putting food out to minimize the threat of lead. And at times when we weren't able to do that, say, for example, during a wildfire, that percentage is 100% on their own. And so we know that they've gone long periods of time without proffered food. That's not our concern. The quantity of food, it really is not our concern. It's the lead poisoning that they're getting by finding food on their own. And Chris, I think you mentioned it, you said it perfectly. If they weren't finding food if they weren't finding wild food, we wouldn't be talking about lead poisoning, and that's spot on.
Yes, thank you, Kelly. We have some viewers in Contra Costa County, and for those of you spread out, I know we got viewers in England right now and Maryland, many states throughout the United States. But Contra Costa County is in the East Bay area of California, east of Oakland, and that's one of the areas where condors are spreading towards. And so, some questions regarding have we had any recent movements in that area, and any tips for someone living in that area for seeing condors? How likely do you think it is at this point?
Yeah, I can jump in a bit on this. I'm blanking on the date now, but we just had some birds fly up to almost, I think the last time they made a flight up that way was just late last week. They went up almost to Livermore. And it was all, I think it was only a few birds, but we've been seeing more and more flights like that. I'm not as familiar with the area in terms of giving a recommendation of where you might see them when they're up there, but um yeah, kind of between, I know we're seeing more birds getting up into Henry Coe State Park, and they're kind of working their way up between Henry Coe and Mount Diablo. So yeah, I mean, anywhere sort of in the mountains in that range, I guess is what I'd recommend. But unfortunately, I personally don't have any specific places to recommend.
Yeah, and you viewers in that area, you're kind of on the front lines of witnessing the condor distribution expansion, and it's something exciting for us to monitor. And we bring Evan in every now and then to show us maps of this. So I would say uh, that area is not exactly a core area at this point, but you do have a chance to see condors there. And then the second part of that question that maybe we can apply to viewers everywhere, is there a time of year that's easier to see condors? I know the days are much shorter now. Does that affect condor movement? Is there an ideal time of year to see condors in the wild?
I would say this is a great time of year to see wild condors, especially at places like Pinnacles National Park. Because the days are shorter, the birds tend to spend a lot more time in their kind of core range, which includes pinnacles. And that's, we're really coming up on the start of breeding season right now, and courtship season. So birds are sticking closer to home, and they're also starting to display a lot more, and trying to impress the females and or males in their lives. And so a place like Pinnacles is just the perfect spot. The weather's much nicer for humans, and it's also really nice for condors. They want to be up there kind of in the rock formations. And a lot of pairs are really, establishing those pair bonds or kind of reigniting those pair bonds. And so you have the chance to see a lot of displays happening, potentially even copulations happening as we get into January and February is when we start seeing eggs getting laid. So we're really just coming up on like peak condor breeding season. And same thing, honestly, out for the coast along Highway 1 and Big Sur. If you drive the coastline, there's lots of pairs that feed and forage on the coast. So that's part of their core habitat. And so there's, some spots where you can potentially see condors, up close, but Pinnacles is also just a really great spot. If you haven't been there and you have the ability to hike up into the high peaks, I definitely recommend it. It's pretty, my favorite time of year to go is this time of year, and you're more likely to see condors this time of year as well.
So to kind of recap some of the numbers, we're looking at 5 fledglings potentially here in Central California, and Darren, I think you mentioned slightly more than that. Birds have died already this year, so the number of fledglings doesn't quite equal the number of dead this year, and we're looking to have those numbers kind of equal or to have productivity exceed the amount of mortality. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, ideally, that's kind of what we're looking for, is like a sign that the population is taking a turn toward being self-sustaining. Um, And, we're still seeing growth in the population because of the captive bred releases we're doing. But, without those, like this year would be a net loss. So yeah, we're not at the point where, like this year, where the fledges have outnumbered the mortalities. But yeah, that's definitely sort of a big goal for us, like a corner we're hoping to turn, and hopefully soon as we keep getting more and more birds reaching breeding age and having new pairs form.
And Danae demonstrated that quite well, showing that we're looking at an increased number of pairings, and so that has a potential of really balancing that much better. But we still have much work to do in minimizing the um, lead associated mortality. David makes the point about it's not only the hunters that are making the switch. Now that some manufacturers have stopped making non-lead 22, we need those manufacturers to switch to non-lead as well. So it's not just the hunters that need to make the switch, it's the manufacturers, some of them, that need to switch to producing more non-lead. Um, Thanks so much, everyone, for your questions. We hope you have a great Thanksgiving. We look forward to the next Condor Chat, which is coming up in another month, December 18th, I believe. Is that right, Darren? And
Mm.
I'll throw it back to you for any final words, but certainly appreciate you being with us this afternoon and evening, and look forward to seeing you next time.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Yeah, just a few things more I'll mention. We still have the Donate to Save the Condor Fund, which Kelly was given the update on. And through December 31st, you can give through Monterey County Gives. I believe they match donations and to some degree. And Kelly, you can chime in if you have more specifics on that. But yeah, now's a really good time to give. Again, through December 31st, go to Monterey County Gives and donate to us through there.
Yeah,
Um,
they
I'm
will
sorry, go
match.
ahead.
Yeah, they'll match up to 10%, approximately 10% up to the first $75,000. Many people like to be able to have an extra little match there, but of course, many people also contribute directly. So, either way, we're happy to continue your support.
Thank you, Kelly. Um, and yeah, just for you all who are viewing the chat today, you can get a 50% off of our online store. Just enter the code all caps NOV25 chat NOV25 CHAT at your checkout, and that'll go through next Wednesday, November 26th. And yeah, you can get there at ventanaws.org/store. So yeah, take advantage of that. And I think that will do it. Yeah, I'll just please connect with us through social media on Instagram, Facebook. See the videos that we post on YouTube. We're going to start putting our chats up there, or we already started putting our chats up there now. And yeah, you can subscribe to our newsletter too, The Full Crop. You can scan this QR code I've got up on the screen. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining us today. Yeah, again, just awesome to have 80 of these in the books. And yeah, it's awesome that we've been able to continue these and that we have such a strong following and all of you guys joining us. So thank you.
And thank you, Darren, for jumping into the hot seat with Joe on assignment. And I believe Joe will be back in December, and he looks forward to seeing everyone then.
Yes, yes, indeed. All right.
And
Bye,
Danae,
everybody.
I love all your updates today on nesting. Thank you so much for that too.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks for tuning in.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.